Greetings, Dr. Jeffrey Scott, and this is my Market MRI Pro update for Wednesday, September 10th, 2025. Got back in the country yesterday, and by the time I got home from Miami, let's just say jet lag one, Market MRI Pro update lost. And sorry I missed last night. Well, what a day we saw today. I don't think the market's nearly as strong as new highs would suggest. I'll show you some evidence. And I called today new all-time highs and new worries. Again, my name is Jeffrey Scott. This is the Market MRI Pro at gmail.com. Google Groups top-down trader. Um, if you're new to the channel, hit subscribe, hit the alarm so you know when I do these. If you have comments, plus or minus, constructive, all are welcome. I can only get better by you helping me. If you like what I do, please let me know. If you really like it, hit that thumbs up so I can get other people to come take a look. I've been doing these for a long time. I don't charge for them. I like to help people, but to be honest, what I'm helping the most is myself. I've had just a phenomenal year in the market. Those who've been around for a while know that. And I think part of it is doing videos, especially now going to every night instead of every weekend, forces me to follow my own words and my own regimen. So it's been a good year. As always, this program is for educational purposes only. Any stocks I mentioned should be taken in the spirit of education, not investment advice. The intent of the videos demonstrate the tools of top-down analysis and how I apply them. Trading involves risk. You're only solely responsible for any investment decision you make. I may own or intend to buy or sell any stock mentioned in this report. Trading stocks and options should be considered risky. You should always consult with your financial advisors. And I've got tools in multiple platforms, and I have a very excited. I have a call tomorrow with one of the leaders at Metastock, and I have three little formatting issues, and then we're going to release that hopefully very soon. My Google group is called Top Down Trader. Everybody's welcome. You don't have to buy something to come. In fact, not only is it free, and not only do I open it up to everybody, if you do come, I will give you a discount towards my tools. Now, I just ran a sale at Market MRI Pro at its lowest price ever, which is basically expiring. And I didn't use that discount because it was already baked in, but consider joining. It's where I post videos when I don't post them on YouTube, and where we'll do some free online education for just the group. I also like to do live education upcoming October 26th and 27th, Marriott Palm Beach Gardens. 2 days packed of education and software. There's another meeting going on concurrently on Sunday and Monday. John Person is Friday and Saturday. I'll probably go to that one. At least to Saturday, I'll be speaking at a medical conference in New York on Friday. John's a great guy. I mean, brilliant trader, teacher, author, indicator developer, used to own a futures brokerage. Super smart guy. I always learn from him no matter how many times I go. Cost of my session alone, my 2 days is $12.50. I'll get you fat. I'll give you breakfast, lunch, and dinner on Sunday, including dinner on my yacht. On Monday, we'll do breakfast and lunch. And then if there's interest, we'll consider going out as a group afterwards. And then the other thing is there'll be fluids and snacks throughout the day. Full service Marriott, 155 a night. If you're interested, contact me at marketmripro@gmail.com. I already talked about my Google group. News and earnings. So we had the PPI, and I thought the PPI came in light. Some of the people talked about some of the core still being, what's the word I would use? Sticky. Um, Market liked it originally, but it really didn't hold up. We got the CPI, and there were conversations that perhaps that inflation's been passed on to the consumers. And then we get a preliminary September consumer sentiment. I've seen that move the market as well. I think the gestalt now is that the economy is slowing down, employment's weakening, and we still haven't found that tariff-induced inflation yet. I think everybody's expecting at least a 25 basis cut meeting at the Fed from the Fed this month, and I think there's going to be more and more calls for 50 basis points. if the CPI comes in reasonable. Not as much earnings after hours. Oxford was up quite a bit. In the morning, we got Kroger's. In the afternoon, Adobe. Used to be a relevant stock. It's a judgment call to hold stocks over earnings dates. It's a bad judgment to not know when your stock's earnings date is scheduled. A couple weeks ago, I talked about how I got hurt one day by Oracle, and I actually held on to my calls. Um, and boy, did I get rewarded today. Except, you only wish you had more when you had a day like today. But I just say that Oracle made this a really good day for anybody that had any significant amount of Oracle in their portfolio. For more information about anything I talk about, marketmripro@gmail.com. For customer support, coding at marketmripro.com. For example, there was a glitch caused by the update this evening, and Praveen had to do a reset of that and re-update it, and it's working fine now. And consider joining my Google group. And let's go on to the charts. So I like to start with the daily briefing to give me a sense. Now, I don't know why that popped up, but let's just turn that off. And you could see one day move 2% on Bitcoin. Spider is up a bit, 0.29. Dollar up 0.07. The Q's flat, but leading up 0.03. Russell down 0.18. Diamond down 0.45. And the VIX down 0.58. On the surface, a relatively boring day on the indices. Narrow range. But if you look at the movement in the day, you could see that we closed close to the highs on the dollar and well off the highs on everything else. The new high minus new lows at 52 weeks remains positive on the NYSE and the NASDAQ. And I think what speaks volumes today is you could see that in blue, most of the sectors were negative across each of these indexes. Industries, the majority were down in all these indexes. And most importantly, only 40% of the S&P 1500 was up, only 40% of the NASDAQ was up, and only 45% of the NYSE was up. So yes, we saw new highs today, but the breadth tells me that most stocks, at least a little bit over 50-50, didn't participate. If we go and we look at the timing model, no surprise, after the last couple of days, the daily, even on the spiders and the Qs have reverted to a bull, sorry about that, to a bull, which is good to see. That the markets have stabilized some. So the daily signal is bullish. And what hasn't changed is the weekly signal is still bullish as well. Let that come up. And you could see here, just looking at the buy sell line, we've been bullish for a number of weeks. And frankly, isn't that the right move? Look at the move the markets have had off the bottom. So even though I have concerns, and we'll talk about them as we go forward, the market timing model says I'm supposed to be long. That's okay. If we look at the U.S. indexes, let's take, since I didn't do this yesterday, let's take a little deeper look and see what we're seeing. On the S&P 500, here was the old high. What did we get today? New highs. So we closed kind of at the old high, but intraday we set new highs. And on the day, the S&P was up 0.29. As I've talked about it, and this is I think it's a 4 or 9. I was playing around with that one day. What is that? 9-day EMA. But we're above the EMA. We're above the 17, the 50. Lots of support there. As I've talked about, even a pullback to the 50 here wouldn't mean this was broken. Now, I learned a long time ago, it's hard to be bearish at all-time highs, but it is certainly possible that this market continues with the deterioration into the rest of the week. A lot depends on the CPI. And what deterioration? Deterioration in breadth. Now, one question I haven't answered to myself, what was the volume like in the market? And so let me quickly look at one of my other monitors and pull up the market surge. I like being consistent with what I use for volume. So volume was up 15% On the NASDAQ, it was up 10%, the NYSE. So volume was greater than normal. So new highs at volume greater than normal, but that opaque candle means we closed lower than the open, even though we were up. Again, we gapped up with that great news. Look at the Qs. It's like during the day, we probably hit an all-time high as well. Let's just pull this to the left and let's take the horizontal bar. Let's stick it on this thing's high. And we're either at, we're at it. Pull that down. The close, the high of the day here was 583.32. And the high of the day here is 583.77. So we did not get an all-time high. I thought we got a high today on the Qs. Well, we're close, 588.32, 583.77. So not 583, no, we did 583.32 and 583.77. So by 45 cents, we hit an all-time high in the market on Wednesday. So you hard to be bearish in the setting of all-time highs, but look at that candle. It finished up 0.03, but it gapped up, set the all-time high, and closed near the bottom of the channel or of the trading day. All right, so good, but not great. If I look at the Dow, down on the day, that's why it's a red candle, minus 0.45. Solid candle, which means it opened up here and closed lower. And we are right underneath all-time highs here on the Dow. And those all-time highs were set back here yesterday when we're up 0.40 and the high was 458.55 and the high here was 457.87. Still got this negative seasonality until the middle of October. That's not helping us. You could actually argue, I think, that we're relatively flat here over a period of time, especially on the Qs and on the diamonds. The Russell has not set an all-time high. It's still well off its prior all-time high, which you can see up here, but it's made a massive move and it's sort of giving a little bit, almost looks like a kind of like a flag here. And that's not necessarily bearish if that's the case. Um, so we'll see if we can break out above that. I would love to see the Russell join the new high parties, but you kind of look at this seasonality and think maybe not to the end of the year. So am I bearish? No. Am I expecting more consolidation before we go on massively to set new highs? I think so. And I'm not ruling out a pullback, and a pullback to the 50 again would be manageable. The VIX futures were up a bit in the market on Wednesday. They were up 1.19. And then if we look at the dollar, which has been our friend for quite some time, and frankly, even if it was up today, it's well below that line I drew here. Dollar is consolidating here. Yeah, at some point it's going to break out and it's going to go higher. And I just came back from Barcelona, and boy, are things expensive when you look at them in dollars. But dollar is still pretty weak. How about commodities? What can they tell us about the market? Interesting day in gold. I don't know if I'd buy this entire topping tail, but gold finished down, or gold finished up a bit. Let me just verify that. Thought it almost came back to flatline. It went up initially, then I saw it come back. Gold miners were doing okay, and just looking up where gold closed on a second source. And I spelled gold HLD, not GLD. Oh my God, fat fingers and late at night, still jet lagged. Well, I'm not getting the gold. That looks like we finished up a bit. I just don't know about the tail. Silver also finished up a bit, 0.62. So 0.36 and 0.62 on GLD and silver. Oil back above the 50, above the 200, threatening the 50. Natural gas looks like it was turned down again. 10-year after a bounce on the 10 and 30-year on Tuesday, they were both down today, 1% on the 10-year and 0.02 on the 30-year. So weak rates, weak dollar. Fed's going to cut. What an awesome market. Everything's going up. However, I think the counter to that argument is what's going on with employment and the economy. And rate cuts in recessions are not nearly as exciting as rate cuts in a decent economy. If we look at the buckets, you'll see that a mixture here on the NASDAQ, equal number of stocks, a little bit more below the Bollinger Bands, but still pretty ripe there. Shifting to the left and getting weaker here on the Russell, definitely shifting to the left with the S&P 1500 and shifting to the left on the NYSE. How does that make sense? A market is weaker and the indexes are fine. It's because I think breadth is weakening. If we look at market breadth, first thing on the left is the NYSE, on the right is the NASDAQ composite. On both of them, we set all-time highs today. And we finished off the high, but still above the open on the NYSE, and we corrected down after opening up higher on the NASDAQ. As I said, volume was a little bit higher today. No improvement in the stocks above the moving averages. That's okay. We could see new high, new lows were positive, but despite the indices being AD lines were negative and up-down volume was mixed. The only signal else that we see here is a bango, which is an exuberance signal. And we haven't had one in a while, so maybe that's a positive thing. If we look at additional market breadth, what I don't like is when you see we're making new highs and the green line stocks above the moving averages is getting lower. We're making new highs and the stocks above the moving averages are getting lower. This is new high, new lows on the green, stocks above the moving average. The AD lines are turning down even though we're getting new highs. So I'm a little suspicious. I think these divergences are meaningful. If you look at the S&P 1500, the number of individual issues with a negative divergence is increasing. So I'll just summarize where we are in the markets. It's hard to short all-time highs without a signal to get bearish. I am concerned here. I would have thought with the PPI coming where it was, we would have had a nice rally. We didn't. We'll see what happens with the CPI tomorrow. If we jump into the ratio charts, the big strength was in communications and technology, software, especially with something like Oracle. If we go and we look into the JAS layout, we've had a couple of strong days, so you'd expect us to be up on the number of stocks. And in the impulse list, there's 38, 31. And, I talked about Oracle, but look at this thing which sold off. And this was the day I think I talked about how I got hurt some by Oracle. But I held on, and look what happened today. Woo, what a move. Finishing well off the highs. But as a Michigan Wolverine, I'm thrilled to see that Larry Ellison is now the richest man in the world because he married a Michigan grad and they committed to supporting the NIL program at Michigan as long as one of them are alive. So woohoo, Oracle. Now, on a day like today, I like to still look at the top down. And rather than look at the leading sectors, I thought I'd come over here and look at the industry groups, rank them by percentage move, and you could see I picked these here. When I ran the stocks, I've got what we have down here, which is 247. And to make my life easier, I said, let's give me pullbacks in an uptrend. Give me price over 5, price over 500, stock above the 200, and I want uptrend so the weekly bongo is up. We'll hit OK, and that drops you down to 22. Now let's rank these as we've done here by the number of bullish impulses. When impulses are gap, volume, breakout, momentum. And let's just run down, and you'll see these are some really good looking stocks. I don't know anything about Amresco. It's an industrial, had a horrible bar on Tuesday and a nice gap and reversal today, closing near the high, up 12%. If I go into the earnings, earnings came out August 4th, big earnings growth, massive surprise, lots of surprises. And then I might go look at what's the news. AI optimized data center in the Navy. Well, shocker, the types of stocks that did the best today were data centers and those that support. Vista at Vit Group is a utility that supports data centers as one of their offerings. And when you start to look at what happened today, somewhere in there is a trend line breakout um, in a stock that does not have the same negative seasonality of the market. We can come up here and see when the next earnings is, November. You could see revenue slowed down here. That's an interesting move, but still was a surprise. Excuse me, earnings rather. And revenue is growing some, mostly steady, and it pays a 1.01 dividend. MTZ, don't know what Mastech does. Let's see if we can tell anything from the news. Strong growth stock, strong buy, pullback can set up long-term rally. Well, that's all good stuff. And if I look here at the earnings are not out to October 30th, look at the earnings per share growth. Stock's got a PE of 20. We're expecting 232 versus $1.63. That's 60 cents. So that's 30% growth, 40% growth, 35% growth. That's pretty good with a PE of 20. Mastech, beautiful chart, uptrend, pullback, and a breakout. I didn't mention what's underneath, so let's just go back here. These dots, the fact we went from red to black says that we're getting an EMS signal probably tomorrow. CPR signal, gap, volume breakout momentum, relative strength in OBV. VST, similar pattern without the CPR, like that. MTZ, big volume day. CPR, volume breakout momentum out of a squeeze, good relative strength, OBV is turning up. VIX has been a big winner, and building goes up. VIX is going to do well. It's very expensive stocks. Sterling Infrastructure, another building stock. So again, not a cheap stock. In fact, the market's filled with what we'd call expensive stocks, but a beautiful breakout in an uptrend here on STRL. And again, I'm always looking for next earnings, not to November 5th. APLD, a little loosey-goosey, a lot less expensive of a stock, exhibiting a similar breakout after a pullback. TAC, Transatlantic, another utility. I don't know if this is one that is involved in data centers. I'm tempted to think it is. It's a relatively cheap stock. Let's see what it says here. Strategic priorities. I might even open this up and see if I can tell what those are. Is this an MLP? I don't know what they do. All right, wind. All right, energy stock. I have a feeling they might be an MLP or something in energy. All right. Does it pay a dividend? Teeny weeny dividend, like 2%. PE is 26. Okay. ER, Premium Resources, OVV. Notice a lot of energy stocks. NRG, this is one that, again, related to data centers by providing nuclear energy. So this is how I do top-down investing. I looked at the top industry groups, and I found some interesting stocks. I'm tired. You're tired of me, and I hate giving lots of, hey, I think this looks like a good pick tomorrow, considering that I don't know what the CPI is, and that's going to determine everything. So let me just show you my favorite way to find good stocks in 2 minutes. Number one, pull back an uptrend. Number two, price and volume. Then above the 200 and weekly bond go up. I hit OK, and you get, what did I miss? 2-day Momo up. You should have just a handful. APLD, this is one we looked at, and I thought was kind of loosey-goosey, but nice uptrend. Core Scientific, don't remember what they did. Obviously, something good happened on June 25th, and on June 25th, don't know what it was. Earnings are not to November 5th, does not make money, still an expensive stock. Okay, then I might want to go over here and see what they do. Proposed sale of Core Scientific. And then it's all CoreWeave, which I don't think is the same thing. All right, so it sounds like it's being sold to CoreWeave. Okay, now I understand. I don't play with arbitrage, and that's kind of what it is right now. So that's kind of why we built the news and the fundies in there so you could see. NRG, we just talked about, one of the nuclear energy stocks that would support data centers, and VST. I think if I had to pick one, I'm thinking of VST, and not much of a dividend, 1%, just for verifying that. Breaking out of a trend line in a day when everybody's coming up excited about data centers. And boy, you got to build them, you got to power them, you got to have storage, you got to have GPUs. And I think you're going to have someone like Vistra Energy as a partner. Have an awesome, awesome day in the markets. Good luck with CPI, and we'll most likely talk to you Thursday night.